Well, hello everybody. Welcome to the April edition of the Mayor's Monthly Video. Last month we sort of initiated our pilot program. We talked about making this a regular event, and thankfully we are going to be able to do that. And I just wanted to go ahead and share with you just a little bit about this Mayor's Monthly, because one of the things that I wanted to do is be able to take and answer questions from our citizens about things that they're concerned about, what's bothering them, and have you an opportunity to submit those questions to me. So what I wanted to do is kind of go through just a little bit of how to do that. So it's easy of 1, 2, 3, and basically it's a 3-step process. Then I wanted to give you a report that I gave to the Shelby County Chamber and all of the communities in Shelby County. Each year the Chamber hosts a State of Our Community luncheon, and each mayor gets up and talks about the major issues going on in their community. So I wanted to share that with you. We did that last month, and then end up with some community happenings. So as far as how can you submit questions to me to answer on this Mayor's Monthly video. So I'm assuming, since you're watching this, that you've gotten access to our website and you've clicked on the button that allows you to get to the Mayor's Monthly meeting or video. But once you get to the website, you can see at the top right there is a little button or link that says, "How can I?" If you'll just place your cursor over that "How can I" button, the drop-down menu is going to come available, and you'll see that I have circled a link that says comments and questions. So step 1 is just cursor over the "How can I," get the drop-down menu, click on comments and questions. That's going to take you to step 2, and this contact us window is going to appear. And it gives you the opportunity to report a problem to our Public Works Department, or you can ask the mayor a question. So click on that link to ask the mayor a question, and you're going to come to this window, and it's going to ask for your name, your email address, your phone number, and then for you to describe what your question or concern is. Now, if you choose not to include your name or email address or phone number, that's fine. You can still pose a question, but if you put that contact information, maybe it give me an opportunity to maybe get some clarification if I can contact you, and I can also maybe give you a little bit more of a direct answer. So that's it. 1, 2, 3, how you're going to ask the mayor a question. And we can put it on this video and we can share it with other folks in the community, because if it's of interest to you, then it's probably of interest to them. Okay, so the State of Our Communities presentation, there are 3 things that I wanted to talk about on the State of Our Community presentation: infrastructure and services, economic development, and our budget and finance. So let me move on. So infrastructure and services. In 2021, Columbiana received an ARPA, American Rescue Plan Act grant of $1.08 million. And that was given to us, half of it in 2021, and the other half of it was given to us in 2022. And there were limited things you could use that for: water systems, wastewater systems, but you could also use it for stormwater mitigation. So we chose to do that in the light of recent floodings that we had. But we wanted to make sure we knew where the biggest problems were. We wanted to make sure we understood where the rainfall was coming from, what was causing the flooding problems, how could we solve it. So we commissioned a study by an engineering firm, and they basically mapped out all of our major stormwater systems, which are mostly ditches in Columbiana, tributaries as they call them, and they did some sophisticated modeling and studies to come up for, what's the impact of a 100-year storm, a 25-year storm, and a 10-year storm. And we went with how could we mitigate a 10-year storm? Well, there are 5 major tributaries in Columbiana, stormwater tributaries that pretty much everything feeds into. And to fix all that, to mitigate a 10-year storm was going to take tens of millions of dollars, and all we had was $1 million, and we spent nearly $200,000 of that on the year-long study, so about $175,000 or so. So we have about $850,000 to do this on. So we've come up with a plan to address one of those, and we're going to have to use future funds and plan for more activities that we can do over the long term to try to finally get this stormwater infrastructure up to speed. So another issue that we had is problems at our wastewater treatment plant. So if you look at this photo on the chart, you can see our two wastewater treatment ponds. And the one on the right, these ponds have a liner in them, and the one on the right, if you look in the lower right-hand corner, you can see the liner of the pond, and that's because it's leaking. The wastewater is going underneath the liner, and the liner is floating up. Well, that's bad, and the EPA, which is administered in Alabama by the Alabama Department of Environmental Management, doesn't like that, and so we needed to come up with a plan to fix that, and it's very, very expensive. And so we applied for a grant from ADEM, and we were awarded that grant. It's about $5.5 million, a little over $5.5 million, and it's split in two pieces. Half of it is a direct grant from the Alabama Department of Environmental Management. Now, it is funded by more of these federal ARPA funds, but half of it is a direct grant, and then the other half is a loan from the state revolving fund at 1.99%, and given current interest rates, that's a significant, that's very cheap money, if you will. And so what we will do, we've been granted the grant portion of those funds. We will expend those first. This project's going to take us a couple of years to update the treatment plant, and then we will start drawing as work progresses on the SRF funds. And so hopefully that's going to solve our not only issue with the leak, but it's going to help us maybe even increase our capacity in the sewage treatment plant. As far as wastewater treatment, we had two other projects that were completed last fiscal year. They totaled about $1.3 million. One of them was partially funded by a community development block grant, CDBG. It says CBDG on there, which is backwards. And that's administered by the Alabama Department of Economic and Community Affairs. We got $450,000 for that. That dealt with an upgrade to the wastewater sewers on College Street in front of Piggly Wiggly, and then it went behind CDS and under Highway 25 and down to the treatment plant. And many of you may have remembered times when we'd have heavy rain because of problems with those sewer lines. Water would get into the sewer drains, and it would come bubbling out of the manhole covers, and we would have to put signs in the Piggly Wiggly parking lot that said, it's raw sewage, and obviously nobody likes that. So we have mitigated that problem with this repair. And the other sewer project that we completed in 22 was, again, replacing old terracotta sewer pipes on Highway 70 around the county offices and up there around the industrial park. Okay, so the biggest problem that we've had, I'm very proud of the fact that we've been able to implement a lot of paving projects in the last couple of years, improving some of the roads, particularly in residential areas, but in some of the more well-traveled areas. This year, we got an early start, and in January, as we were doing some paving, we ran into some significant problems in one particular area, and that's primarily around Center Street, which connects Goodwin Street and Thompson. And the problem is that as we milled away the asphalt to replace it, we found out there was no base structure underneath to support the paving, and consequently even the trucks were sinking down in the mud. And you can see in the photographs on the bottom this Center Street before and the mud afterwards. That clay was very, very spongy and wet, and it simply was not going to support a paved road unless we put a proper base on there. We had our engineers come up with a plan for that, and as a result of that, our paving project is going to cost us about $300,000 more than we had planned. So what we decided we would try to do, knowing that the Rebuild Alabama Act had some grants available that would be awarded in April, we would try to apply for one of those grants and see if we couldn't get some assistance on that budget overrun. Unfortunately, we were not awarded that grant. But in the meantime, what we did is we tried to put a base coat of gravel. It's not ideal, but by any stretch of the imagination. And we decided, since the road was torn up, we would try to repair some of those terracotta wastewater sewage pipes on there. So there's been a replacement there. So as fate would have it, during that sewer work, the contractor had burst about 4 gas lines. And there was a lot of concern from the citizenry that the contractor didn't know what they were doing. And why didn't they call 811 and Spire and so on? Well, they did all that. The problem is Spire did not know where those sewer lines were at. And that's a result of many, many years ago, 30 or so, when Columbiana had its own gas company. And there were no records as to the location of those gas lines. And then Columbiana sold to Alagasco, and then Alagasco was acquired by Spire. Just no records available. So we've worked very, very closely with Spire to try to get those, and we were able to get those repaired. We've also followed their protocols as far as safety and whatnot to make sure that we cordoned off areas to keep people out of it. But it has been a significant problem. And in doing the wastewater sewage, we discovered that the stormwater sewer along Johnston Street, which is a dead-end street that feeds into Center Street, and actually the wastewater or the stormwater sewer line starts on the east side of Center Street and runs under Center Street before it goes down to Johnston. That corrugated steel pipe had rusted out completely and needs to be replaced. And so we're going to try to get that done and then start the repaving. We didn't get the grant, but we will dip into our budget reserves and we'll try to get the repaving of Center Street started this month, or early May. It's been a real issue and a real problem, and I apologize for all the inconvenience. But at the end of the day, when this is all done, I think we're going to have us a great road. We're going to have us a new wastewater sewage system there, and we're going to have a good stormwater sewage system there, or stormwater drainage system. So hopefully the pain will be worth it. So lastly, as far as infrastructure, we did get a COPS grant this year. We were able to, actually last fiscal year, and we were actually hired 2 new police officers and send them to police academy, still there. We expanded our school resource officer coverage, and we also applied for, actually in 2021, a grant from FEMA called SAFER. It's Staffing for Adequate Fire and Emergency Response, and we were notified just last week that we were awarded that grant for $293,000. That's going to help us to recruit, train, equip, and retain our volunteer firefighters. We put a plan in and said we need about 20 additional volunteer firefighters. An additional grant that we applied for that is still pending is called Assistance to Firefighter Grant, also funded by FEMA, and we're asking for $700,000 there to help us get a new pumper truck for our volunteer fire department. We've had some pretty good luck on getting grants awarded lately, so hopefully we'll be able to get that taken care of as well. All right, the next thing I want to talk to you about as far as infrastructure is broadband, and I'm going to take you to the next chart. The good news is I've been kind of complaining about the lack of broadband coverage and the spottiness of broadband internet coverage in and around Columbiana for a long time after I was elected mayor. I stood up a couple of years ago at a League of Municipalities asking some questions of C-Spire and other officials there about what it would take to get the broadband coverage we need. I won't go into it. Got a little bit of a tap dance. It was a little frustrating to me. And lo and behold, last month I get a call from Charter Communications, which has been acquired by Spectrum. This says that they got a grant from the state of Alabama for a little under $2 million, plus they were going to invest another $16 million or so of their own money to come up with $18 million to put in fiber optic cable in the yellow areas on this chart. The gentleman who called me from C Spire said, I was at that League of Municipalities meeting where you stood up complaining and asking about the broadband service, and he said, I remembered it, so he said, I wanted to call you directly and tell you that we're going to be able to do this in Columbiana. And that was good news for me, because usually I feel like I get up and I say this sort of stuff and sort of stir the pot and nobody's paying attention, but apparently somebody was. So as you can see here, it looks like spotty. It's in the core of Columbiana. It's in the outlying areas towards Wilsonville and towards Calera and towards Lay Lake. But initially, Spectrum or Charter Communications is not going to be allowed to put fiber optic cable in areas that are already served by AT&T. So they're going to focus on those areas that aren't served by other fiber optic cable, and eventually they hope to be able to come into the same areas currently served by AT&T and perhaps offer a competitive solution to what AT&T offers. I don't know the timing of when they're going to actually start laying this fiber and when there'll actually be high-speed internet available, but it's good news that at least somebody's making the investment, and there's a commitment to serve, nearly 5,000 homes and businesses in this area. Okay, the next item that I talked about in the state of our community was economic development. I think in our last meeting or our last monthly, Mayor's Monthly, I talked a little bit about the recreation economy for rural communities. I don't want to spend a great deal of time on that. I will say that we will have a virtual meeting this afternoon where our various teams, we have teams assigned to each of those 4 goals there, are going to talk about their progress, and we're getting prepared for, in early May, another virtual meeting with our federal partners to help us finalize the plan. The implementation of all of the goals and action items that we have put together will probably take several years, and in fact, some of them could take as long as 10 or 20 years, the bigger and more aggressive or optimistic of those things. But nevertheless, we're putting a plan in place and we're putting actions in place, and we're going to go obviously try to get as many of the smaller ones that we can get done in the short term and continue to work with the assistance of these federal partners on the more longer term solutions. Our city put together a team last year that participated in the inaugural class of the Alabama League of Municipalities Economic Development Academy. And one of the initiatives that we came up was to develop a pedestrian mall behind Main Street on the west side, okay, and also try to create an entertainment district in Columbiana, all to facilitate economic development, bring people to the downtown area, and folks can spend money at local businesses and whatnot. So what we did is our last council meeting, the first one of this month, we passed an ordinance establishing an arts and entertainment district in Columbiana. It's outlined on this chart here, and we're calling it Columbiana Live. And in this district, for those facilities, those restaurants and other things that have alcoholic beverage licenses, it will allow for, under certain conditions, and I won't go into the detail here, we can find out more about that, the open carry of beverages from those outside of those facilities that sell it. I'll give an example, like the Blue Agave restaurant. If you were to purchase a margarita there, you could take it out into the entertainment district. Now, you can't take it into another store, unfortunately. You can walk up and down the street. You can't take it into another establishment that serves alcoholic beverages, and each one of them will have a unique cup with a logo and whatnot on it, so that it identifies where it came from and so on and so forth. And the entertainment district also incorporates the roads. You cannot actually normally take it in a road or a parking lot or sit in a car or anything like that and consume alcoholic beverages. It's basically just to allow you to stroll up and down the sidewalk, except under special occasions. For example, Liberty Day, the mayor can basically say, okay, you can walk up and down the streets, which will be blocked off during Liberty Day within the entertainment district with an open beverage there. So there's some, again, significant amount of rules that go along with that, and we'll get that information out, obviously, to all the establishments as well. It's essentially effective now. You could do it now, and it takes effect, or you can do it from 5 p.m. after many of the shops and businesses are closed, except for things like restaurants and other places. But it's from 5 p.m. to 10:30 p.m. Monday through Friday, and from noon until 10:30 p.m. on Saturday. And we don't do it at any time on Sunday unless we were to have some sort of special event. And right now we usually don't have those on Sunday. So Columbiana Live, hopefully that will draw a lot of folks into Columbiana. Another economic development initiatives, we entered into an agreement with Orchestra Partners to help with urban planning. We had our kickoff meeting with them. There's going to be another meeting in the near future, and we'll get the word out to everybody that we want to open up and get broad participation to the public. They're going to give you some of their thoughts and ideas, and they and the city wants to hear from you, our residents, as to what you would like to see happen as far as this urban planning project is concerned. These are some of the new businesses that have come into Columbiana in the past year. Okay, I attended yesterday a training session offered by the Alabama League of Municipalities, and I've been doing that ever since I became mayor, because there are many laws, rules, and regulations that govern how municipalities in Alabama work, and most folks who run for public office, particularly in small municipalities, are totally unfamiliar with them. I certainly was. And so the league offers this certification called a Certified Municipal Official. I'm happy to report that in 2021, I became a Certified Municipal Official, and at the training that I attended yesterday, I completed enough additional training to get the advanced certification for a municipal official. And I find it all extremely helpful. And as a result of that, about 2 years ago in one of these training classes, I learned of this requirement where it says that the mayor has to present a semi-annual written statement to the council of the city's financial condition and show all temporary floating indebtedness for what it was created and the steps he or she will take to protect the credit of the city. I had no idea of that requirement, and as I looked around to see if this had ever been done before, apparently no other mayor had ever had any idea of the requirement, and it had never been done in the city of Columbiana ever before. So we've done that. I am working on one, and I will present it to the city council at our next meeting, which is April the 19th, I believe, Tuesday evening, and I'll present this report on the city's finances. The biggest concern that I have, and I don't think it's a significant concern, but it does worry me, and that's the city's debt. You cannot find anywhere any rules, regulations, or anything that say how much debt should a city have. You can do a lot of research and you can find various rules of thumb, and they're all over the place that different cities use. At the League of Municipalities training yesterday, we had the budget and finance director from the city of Montgomery, so I asked him, what rule of thumb does Montgomery have? And they really didn't have one. But they have been working on trying to reduce their debt. So the rule of thumb, based on some of my research that I came up with, is to calculate our debt as a percentage, our debt service, how much we pay to service our debt, as a percentage of our recurring taxes and fees, because that's basically how we're going to pay the bill. There are things that don't recur every year We get grants. We get all kinds of things. You can't count on that. If you're going to pay your bills, you need to focus on what's recurring revenue, if you will. He liked that. He went back and calculated what Montgomery's was. He learned when he took over, and they've been focusing on fixing their debt, that it was about 13%, and now it's about 9%. I had looked up some other cities, and I saw that when you get up around 17% or so, that's considered by most people as being too much debt. Ours is about 15.7, so we're closer to the top end of that recommended range. One rule of thumb was 25% of your general fund expenses. Your debt should not exceed that. Well, ours does. In fact, ours is more than our general fund expenses. And so I think the intention there was 25% of that your debt service should be 25%, but it wasn't clear in the article. So anyway, we're using the percentage of recurring taxes and fees, or at least I am, to help us keep track of that. So that report on the budget and finance looks something like this. I showed this. I don't expect anybody to read it, but I showed it at the State of Our Communities presentation, and just to show people what it looks like. And this is what will be presented. It will be updated, and it will be presented to council on Tuesday night. We will post it on our website, and all of you guys will be able to see that. Okay, so what's happening around town? So April is Fair Housing Month. We adopted a proclamation, the city council did at our last council meeting, basically saying that Columbiana is an inclusive community committed to equal housing opportunities for all. April is also Child Abuse Awareness Month. You may have seen the blue banners. You can see them in the photograph at the top here on Main Street. You've seen the blue pinwheels. That's in observance of Child Abuse Awareness Month. And also last month we had, or earlier this month, we had new District Attorney Matt Casey come speak to Chamber Luncheon at the Old Mill Square, and he brought with him a service dog that supports children who are victims of child abuse. Very impressive dog. Dog's name is Fitz, and a local establishment in town, the Leader Coffee and Tea on the corner, has created a drink in honor of Fitz called the Fitzacino, and $1 from each one of those things that you purchase this month, a Fitzacino, will go to Owen's House, which is right here in Columbiana, and helps to serve those victims of child abuse here. So I encourage you to go get a Fitzacino. Well, I walked away from that meeting after having met Fitz and went and got me one, and it's good. And you can get it hot, you can get it chilled, or you can get it frozen like a Frappuccino. We also adopted an ordinance at the last council meeting making Columbiana a Tree City, USA. We had to make a proclamation that we were going to recognize National Arbor Day on April 28th. Many of you may realize we had a tree giveaway and we recognized Arbor Day back in February. And for some reason, unbeknownst to me, but the state of Alabama recognizes Arbor Day on a different day from the National Arbor Day. But in order to achieve this Tree City USA recognition, we had to recognize National Arbor Day, so we did that. Coming up this month, there's Touch a Truck at Old Mill Square. That's being sponsored by Edward Jones. They do that every year. Kids absolutely love climbing all over these trucks and heavy equipment. You guys may know Kyle Mims, who heads the Edward Jones office here in Columbiana. Kyle's dad is also the mayor of Clanton, so we're sort of kindred spirits in that regard. We're going to have Music on Main Friday nights in June, combined with a farmer's market on Main Street. And of course, the biggest event that we have every year in Columbiana is Liberty Day on Saturday, June 24th, which will actually kick off with a big concert on Main Street Friday night, the 23rd. So be looking for information on some of the entertainment that we have coming out there and the events and happenings there. So that's pretty much it for the month of April. I look forward to seeing you guys next month. And in the meantime, you know, get me those questions, keep those cards and letters coming in, so to speak. And by the way, for those of you who don't have access to the internet, or who and may be watching this with a friend, or who aren't computer savvy or what have you, you can mail those or bring those questions by City Hall, and we'll certainly try to do our best to get those and answer them and address them here on this video, so that your concern can be heard by others, and others can hear what we're trying to do to address that. You guys have a great month.